Galactic Trade Station Meridian floated in the neutral zone between three major star systems. A massive structure of metal and light where hundreds of species came to conduct business and build relationships across the stars. The station hummed with activity as ships from dozens of worlds docked and departed every hour, bringing merchants, diplomats, and travelers from across known space. Lieutenant Commander Kyle Harrison walked through the main concourse with his 8-year-old son, Brandon, by his side. The human diplomat had brought the boy along for what should have been a routine visit to discuss trade agreements with the Centauri delegation. Brandon's eyes went wide as he watched aliens of every shape and size moving past them. Some walking on two legs like humans, while others floated or crawled or moved in ways the child had never imagined. "Stay close to Vulcan while I'm in the meeting," Kyle told his son, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "He'll keep you safe and show you around the observation deck." Vulcan was a Centauri, a species known for their friendly nature and love of learning. His blue skin shimmered under the station lights, and his 4 eyes blinked in a pattern that meant happiness among his people. "Young Brandon and I will have a wonderful time," Vulcan said in his musical voice. "I show him many beautiful ships coming and going." "Yes." Kyle smiled and ruffled his son's dark hair before heading to the conference room. He trusted Vulcan completely. The Centauri had become a good friend over the past year of diplomatic work. Brandon practically bounced with excitement as Vulcan led him to the observation deck, a huge room with transparent walls that looked out into space. Dozens of aliens stood at various viewing stations, watching the ships and stars beyond. The child pressed his face against the glass, amazed by a massive cargo vessel that was slowly moving toward a docking bay. "That one is from Valorian homeworld," Vulcan explained, his translator device making his words clear to the human boy. "Very old ship, but still working good." Brandon nodded eagerly and moved along the windows to get a better view of another ship. In his excitement, he didn't notice the large cargo transport device on the floor behind him. He stepped backward and bumped into it, causing the device to roll a few inches. "Watch where you walk, prey animal." The voice was harsh and filled with anger. Brandon turned and looked up at a Krathic merchant named Zikther. The alien stood nearly 3 meters tall with dark gray armored skin and 4 powerful arms. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their aggressive business tactics and their belief that might made right. "I'm sorry, sir," Brandon said quickly, his voice small. "I didn't see your silence." Zikther's eyes narrowed as he looked down at the human child. "Your kind should not be allowed on stations with real species. You are weak and careless." Vulcan moved quickly between them, his hands raised in a peaceful gesture. "Please, honored merchant. The child meant no harm. He is young and curious. Nothing more." "Move aside, Centauri," Zikther growled. "This does not concern you." Other aliens in the observation deck had stopped what they were doing to watch the confrontation. Some looked concerned, while others seemed merely curious about what would happen next. Security cameras mounted on the walls captured every moment. Brandon felt fear rising in his chest, but he tried to be brave like his father had taught him. "I really am sorry," he said again. "I'll be more careful." Something in Zikther snapped. Perhaps it was the child's calm voice, or maybe the Krathic simply enjoyed causing fear. His armored appendage lashed out faster than Vulcan could react, striking Brandon across the chest with tremendous force. The 8-year-old boy flew backward through the air and crashed into the wall with a sickening sound. He crumpled to the floor and didn't move. Vulcan screamed and rushed to the child's side while other witnesses stood frozen in shock. Blood was running from Brandon's nose and mouth. His small body twisted at an unnatural angle. "Station security to Observation Deck 7 immediately." The automated system blared throughout the area. "Medical emergency in progress." Zikther looked down at the broken child with no expression of remorse on his face. Fragile creatures should stay on their own worlds, he said calmly. The boy needed correction for his clumsiness. Within seconds, security personnel rushed into the observation deck. They surrounded Ziegther while medical staff carefully lifted Brandon onto an emergency transport. The child's breathing was shallow and his eyes were closed. "You are under arrest for assault," the chief security officer announced. A Valorian named Dexul, who had been running Station Meridian for over 20 years. "You will be held in custody until this matter is resolved. I have diplomatic immunity under Krathic law." Ziegther responded without concern. "This is internal matter. The child invaded my space and damaged my property." Dexul's face hardened in all his years managing the station. He had never seen such a blatant attack on a child. "Diplomatic immunity does not cover assault on minors," he said firmly. "Take him to detention." The medical team rushed Brandon to the station's hospital, while an automated message was sent to Kyle Harrison. The human diplomat was in the middle of presenting trade proposals when his communicator buzzed with an emergency. Alert, his blood turned cold as he read the message. Without a word of explanation to the confused Centauri delegation, Kyle ran from the conference room and sprinted through the station corridors toward the medical bay. When he burst through the doors, he found doctors working frantically over his son's small body. Human medical staff had been called in along with the station's best trauma specialists from 3 different species. "He has fractured skull, broken ribs on both sides, and internal bleeding," one of the human doctors told Kyle grimly. "We're doing everything we can, but the next few hours will be critical." Kyle stood by his son's bed and took the boy's small hand in his own. Brandon's face was pale and bruised, his breathing assisted by alien medical equipment. The strong diplomat felt tears running down his face as he watched his child fight for life. "Who did this?" Kyle asked quietly, his voice carrying an edge that made the medical staff step back. "A Krathic merchant named Ziegther," the doctor answered. "Station security has him in custody, but he's claiming it was justified discipline under his species' laws." Kyle. Harrison's expression went cold. He gently kissed his son's forehead and then walked out of the medical bay with purpose in his stride. He had calls to make and messages to send. Earth needed to know what had happened here, behind him. Machines beeped steadily as they monitored Brandon's failing vital signs. The child who had been so excited to see the stars now lay broken and bleeding because an alien had decided human life had no value. But Ziegther and his people would soon learn a terrible truth about humans. They were Deathworld born, and they protected their young with a ferocity that had ended civilizations throughout Earth's history. The Krathic had made the worst mistake of their species' existence. The surgery took 6 hours. Human doctors worked alongside the station's best medical specialists to repair the damage that Ziegther's attack had caused to young Brandon Cooper's body. His fractured skull required careful reconstruction, and the internal bleeding had been severe enough to put the child's life in serious danger. Kyle Harrison stood outside the operating room for every minute of those 6 hours, his face a mask of controlled fury. Ambassador Nicole Barrett had arrived within the first hour, bringing with her the full weight of Earth's diplomatic corps. "The Council needs to understand what happened here," Nicole said quietly as they waited for news. Her voice was calm, but Kyle could hear the steel beneath her words. This wasn't an accident or a misunderstanding. This was deliberate violence against a child. Kyle nodded without taking his eyes off the operating room. "Doors. I've already contacted Earth Command," he said. "They're reviewing the security footage now." What they didn't know was that the footage had already spread throughout the STATION. Aliens from dozens of species had watched the recording in horror as the Krathic merchant struck the small human child. Many had children of their own, and the casual brutality of the attack shocked them deeply. News of the incident traveled faster than any ship could fly. Within 3 hours, every human outpost and embassy across Council space had been informed within 6 hours. Earth's response began. 3 human warships that had been on patrol in nearby sectors immediately changed course towards Station Meridian, the destroyer. USS Vigilant under Captain Ryan Mitchell was the closest and would arrive first. 2 more ships were being redirected from Earth itself. A journey that would take several days, but sent a clear message about how seriously humanity took this attack. Inside the Krathuk diplomatic compound on the station, Lord Krothex received reports about the incident with barely concealed amusement. His species had little respect for what they considered weak races, and humans were relative newcomers to galactic society. The child should have been more careful. Krothex told his staff, "Our laws are clear. Juveniles of any species may be disciplined when they cause damage or show disrespect." His aide, a younger Krathuk named Velmer, looked uncertain. "The humans are sending warships," he pointed out carefully. "Perhaps we should offer some compensation to—" "Absolutely not." Krothex's voice was firm. "That would suggest we did something wrong. Zeekther acted within his rights under Dominion law, and we will support him fully. If the humans want to make noise about it, let them. They're not a military power of any significance." This assessment would prove to be catastrophically wrong in the station's detention area. Zeekther sat in his cell showing no remorse whatsoever when questioned by station security. He repeated the same statement over and over. The human child had been clumsy and disrespectful and deserved correction. He seemed genuinely confused about why anyone would consider his actions problematic. "The boy was fragile," Zeekther explained to Commander Thexul during the interview. "That is not my fault. His species should build stronger offspring if they wish to travel among real civilizations." Thexul, who had 3 children of his own back on the Walorian homeworld, felt his anger rising but kept his voice professional. "You nearly killed an 8-year-old child," he said carefully. "Under galactic law, that is assault regardless of your species customs." Zeekther waved one of his forearms dismissively. "Your laws mean nothing to the Krithik Dominion. We have our own justice system, and I demand to be tried under our laws, not yours." The Valorian commander left the detention area and went immediately to his office. He began searching through the station's classified database, looking for any historical information about humanity that might help him understand what was about to happen. What he found made his blood run cold. 20 years ago, when humans first made contact with galactic civilization, there had been an incident on a remote colony world. A Krathuk raiding party had attacked a human settlement, killing several colonists, including 3 children, before being driven off. The humans at that colony, numbering fewer than 100 and armed with only basic weapons, had fought with such terrible fury that only 3 Krathuk survived to report back. The report had been classified by the Council to avoid causing panic among member species. It described human combat behavior as unprecedented and fundamentally different from known patterns. The surviving Krathuk raiders had been traumatized by the experience, and several had refused to ever leave their homeworld again. But, more importantly, Thexul found Earth's classification in the restricted files. Class 12 Deathworld. Most Council species came from Class 3 or Class 4 worlds, planets with gentle climates and relatively safe environments. A Class 12 designation meant Earth was one of the most hostile planets ever discovered that still supported complex life. The gravity alone would cripple most species, and the atmospheric pressure and temperature extremes would be fatal to many. Thexul looked at the data in growing alarm. Humans had evolved on a world that was essentially a nightmare for most galactic citizens, and they had not only survived but thrived. Their children, even their fragile young ones, came from that environment, and now a Krathuk had deliberately harmed one of those children. The commander immediately requested an emergency meeting with Ambassador Barrett. When she arrived at his office, he shared what he had discovered. "Your people are coming here for revenge," Dexul said bluntly. "I need to know what to expect." Nicole Barrett's expression remained calm, but her eyes were hard as steel. "Not revenge," she corrected. "Justice. There is a difference. We want Ziegler to stand trial for what he did, and we want the Krathic Dominion to acknowledge that attacking children is a crime, not a right." "And if they refuse?" the Valorian asked quietly. The ambassador was silent for a long moment before answering. "Then they will learn why every predator on Earth knows not to threaten human young." She said simply, "We didn't come to the stars to make war, Commander. We came seeking peace and friendship and cooperation. But there are lines that cannot be crossed. Harming children is one of those lines." Before Dexul could respond, an alarm sounded throughout the station. A new ship had just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of sensor range. The USS Vigilant had arrived. Captain Ryan Mitchell's destroyer was smaller than many Council warships, but it had been designed for operations around Earth and other Deathworlds. Its hull could withstand atmospheric pressures that would crush most alien vessels, and its systems were hardened against radiation levels that would kill unprotected crews in minutes. Mitchell sent a formal message to station Meridian requesting permission to dock and stating his purpose: to provide security for human citizens and to observe the legal proceedings regarding the assault on Brandon Cooper. Lord Krothex immediately protested, claiming the human warship's presence was an act of intimidation. The Council's Emergency Diplomatic Committee, hastily assembled to address the growing crisis, found themselves caught between two species that were rapidly heading toward confrontation in the medical bay. Brandon Cooper finally opened his eyes. His father was sitting beside the bed, holding his small hand. "Dad," the boy whispered, his voice weak. "Did I get in trouble for bumping into that alien?" Kyle felt his heart break at the question. His son, who had been brutally attacked and nearly killed, was worried about getting in trouble. "No, Brandon," he said gently. "You didn't do anything wrong. None of this is your fault." The child tried to smile, but winced in pain. "My chest hurts," he said. "I know, buddy," Kyle replied, smoothing his son's hair. "But you're going to be okay. The doctors fixed you up, and you're going to heal." Brandon's eyes started to close again as the medication pulled him back towards sleep. "Love you, Dad," he mumbled. "I love you too, son," Kyle whispered. "And I promise you, the person who hurt you will answer for what he did." As Brandon drifted back to sleep, Kyle Harrison stood and walked to the window. He could see Captain Mitchell's destroyer approaching the station, its running lights bright against the darkness of space. More ships would come. Earth would not let this attack go unanswered, and the Krathic Dominion would soon discover that humanity's patience had limits. The Galactic Council chamber was filled to capacity with representatives from over 100 species. The emergency session had been called within hours of the USS Vigilant's arrival, and tensions were running high throughout the station. Ambassador Nicole Barrett stood at the speaker's platform, her posture straight and her voice clear as she presented humanity's position to the assembled delegates. "We ask for three things," she said firmly. "First, that Ziegler face trial under galactic law for the assault of a minor child. Second, that the Krathic Dominion formally acknowledge this act as a crime. And third, that reparations be paid to the victim and his family." Lord Krothex rose from the Krathic delegation seats, his massive form dominating the chamber. "The Dominion rejects these demands entirely," he announced with barely concealed contempt. "Under our laws, what Ziegler did was perfectly acceptable. The human juvenile invaded his personal space and damaged his property. He had every right to administer discipline." A murmur ran through the chamber. Some species looked uncomfortable with this statement, while others seemed uncertain about how to proceed. "You call breaking a child's skull discipline?" Nicole said, her voice cutting through the noise. "You call sending an 8-year-old to surgery for 6 hours acceptable?" Let me be very clear about something, Lord Crothex. Humanity does not now, nor will we ever, accept the brutal treatment of children as a cultural difference. Crothex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the chamber walls. Then perhaps humans should build sturdier offspring, he said dismissively. We offer a payment of 5,000 credits for the damaged child and consider this matter closed. The word damaged hung in the air like poison. Nicole Barrett's expression went cold and hard. You just made a terrible mistake, she said quietly before Crothex could respond. Captain Ryan Mitchell requested permission to address the council. The human destroyer captain had been observing from the gallery and now stepped forward with a data tablet in his hands. Honorable council members, Mitchell began, his military bearing evident in every word. I believe there has been a fundamental misunderstanding here. The Krathic Dominion seems to operate under the assumption that humans are weak, that our children are fragile, and that we can be easily dismissed. He activated a holographic display above the platform. An image of Earth appeared, rotating slowly in 3 dimensions. This is humanity's homeworld, Mitchell continued. I would like to share some information that most of you may not have been cleared to know. The display shifted to show Earth's classification data. Gasps echoed through the chamber as delegates saw the Class 12 Deathworld designation. For those unfamiliar with the classification system, Mitchell explained, a Class 12 world is considered nearly uninhabitable by galactic standards. The atmospheric pressure at sea level on Earth would crush members of most species represented here within hours. The gravity is approximately twice what most of you experience on your homeworlds, and the temperature extremes range from levels that would freeze your blood to levels that would boil it. He pulled up more data, showing Earth's dangerous wildlife, its extreme weather patterns, its tectonic activity that regularly destroyed cities. Humans evolved on this world, he said. Our children grow up on this world, and yes, by your standards, are young. Ones are fragile, but I would like to show you what we consider normal childhood activities. The holographic display began showing footage of human children. Kids climbing trees dozens of meters tall, swimming in oceans filled with predators, playing contact sports that involve deliberate physical collision, riding bicycles at high speeds, skateboarding down steep hills. Council members watched in growing horror as these small humans engaged in activities that would hospitalize or kill the young of most species. One Centauri delegate actually fainted when the display showed children jumping off cliffs into water far below. These are not trained warriors, Mitchell said calmly. These are ordinary human children engaging in play. This is how we develop the survival instincts necessary to thrive on a death world. Lord Crothex had stopped laughing. His face showed the first hints of uncertainty. Mitchell continued, pulling up medical scans of Brandon Cooper. This is the child that Zeekther attacked, he said. Despite his injuries, his body is already healing at a rate that your medical staff finds remarkable. His immune system is currently fighting off 17 different station pathogens that most species require vaccinations to survive. His bone density, even as a juvenile, exceeds that of adult Krathic in several key measurements. The captain's voice grew harder. That boy, whom you called fragile and damaged, comes from a world where the air itself is mildly corrosive to most galactic species. He breathes an atmosphere with an oxygen content that would be toxic to many of you. He lives under gravity that would cripple your strongest soldiers. And yet, you believe he is weak. Mitchell activated another set of files. I want to show you something else, he said. This is a historical record of what happens when humans perceive threats to their children. The display showed images from Earth's history, civilizations that had risen and fallen, wars fought across continents, weapons developed and deployed. But the focus was always the same. Human societies throughout history had one absolute rule: protect the children at all costs. We have a saying on Earth. Mitchell told the Silent Council. It takes a village to raise a child. This means our entire society participates in protecting and nurturing our young. It is not just a parental duty, but a civilizational imperative. He showed footage of humans risking their lives to save children from fires, floods, and other disasters. Parents who had fought off predators many times their size. Strangers who had died protecting children they had never met. This is who we are, the captain said. We came to the stars hoping for peace. We have spent 20 years building friendships and trade relationships and cultural exchanges with your species. We have been patient and accommodating and eager to learn from you. His voice dropped to a tone that made several delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. But there is one thing you need to understand about Deathworld species. We survive because we protect our vulnerable. We thrive because we defend our young with absolute commitment. And when someone deliberately harms a human child, they trigger instincts that go back millions of years of evolution. Mitchell looked directly at Lord Crothex. Your representative struck an 8-year-old boy hard enough to fracture his skull and break his ribs. He did this knowing the child was helpless to defend himself. He did this in front of witnesses and cameras, and then he showed no remorse, calling his victim fragile and damaged. The captain's next words fell like hammer blows. You have awakened something in humanity that you do not understand. We are not here for revenge. We are here for justice. But if justice is denied, if you continue to treat this as acceptable behavior, then you will learn why attacking human children is the single worst decision your species could have made. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the most skeptical delegates had been affected by Mitchell's presentation. Ambassador Barrett stepped forward again. We are giving the Krathic Dominion 72 hours to accept our terms, she announced. After that time, if Zikther has not been remanded for trial, humanity will take action. We do not want war, we want justice. But we will have one or the other. Lord Crothex stood frozen, the certainty draining from his face. He had expected the humans to back down when challenged. Instead, he had just learned that he was dealing with a species that evolved on one of the deadliest worlds in known space. A species that would fight to the death to protect their children. The council session ended in chaos as delegates rushed to contact their homeworlds. Everyone could sense that something fundamental had shifted. The humans were no longer the friendly newcomers who could be easily dismissed. They were Deathworld born, and their patience had limits. The hours following Captain Mitchell's presentation to the council brought a steady stream of new arrivals to Station Meridian. Human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel every few hours, each one adding to the growing presence around the neutral station. The carrier USS Defiant arrived first, a massive vessel that dwarfed most ships in the area. It was followed by the heavy cruiser USS Relentless and 6 more destroyers. Within 48 hours of Brandon Cooper's attack, humanity had assembled a battle group that matched the tonnage of any single Council species fleet. Admiral Daniel Crawford assumed command from the bridge of the Defiant. He was a veteran of humanity's expansion into space, a man who had spent decades building peaceful relationships with alien species. But he was also a father of 3, and the security footage of Zikther striking Brandon had filled him with cold fury. Status report, Crawford requested as he settled into the command chair. His tactical officer, Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake, pulled up the current disposition of forces. We have 15 ships in total. Sir, the Krathic have responded by bringing 3 of their battle cruisers to the area. Tonnage is roughly equal, but their vessels are older designs. Crawford nodded. Weapons status. All ships at combat readiness, but weapons offline as per your orders, Blake confirmed. We're ready to defend ourselves, but we won't fire first. The Admiral appreciated his crew's discipline. Humanity didn't want war, but they would be prepared if it came, on the other side of the station. Lord Krothex stood on the bridge of the Krathik battle cruiser Dominance, watching the human ships with growing unease. His initial confidence had been badly shaken by the revelations about Earth's Deathworld classification. They cannot seriously be considering military action over one juvenile, Krothex said to his second-in-command. It would be suicide for their species, but even as he spoke, he remembered the classified report about the colony incident 20 years ago. 100 humans against a Krathik raiding party. The humans had been outnumbered and outgunned. Yet they had fought with such terrible effectiveness that only 3 Krathik survived station commander. Dexul was dealing with an impossible situation. He had over 50 warships from different species now gathered around his station, all watching each other warily. One wrong move could trigger a conflict that would spread across council space. He called an emergency meeting with the ambassadors from the major powers. The Centaurs sent their senior diplomat, a wise old female named Liara, who had been working in council politics for over 30 years. The Valorians sent their military liaison, General Kevton, who commanded respect from all species. We need to prevent this from escalating, Dexul told them bluntly. The humans are serious about their demands, and the Krathik are refusing to back down. If shooting starts, this station will be caught in the middle. Liara shifted her 4 eyes thoughtfully. I have been reviewing our own records, she said quietly. We have found 3 incidents over the past decade where Krathik merchants harmed Centauri children in each case. We accepted financial compensation and did not pursue justice. I believe we made a mistake. General Kevton looked surprised. You never reported these incidents to the council, he said. We were ashamed, the Centauri admitted. Our culture values harmony, and we did not want to cause conflict. But seeing what happened to the human child, seeing how his people responded, it made me realize that sometimes peace requires standing up for what is right, not simply avoiding confrontation. Meanwhile, something else was happening throughout council space. Human, civilian vessels were moving into position along every major Krathik trade route. They weren't blockading or attacking, just watching every Krathik merchant ship that departed a station found itself shadowed by human vessels. The message was clear without words being spoken. Humanity was preparing for economic warfare if their demands were not met. In the station's medical bay, Brandon Cooper was recovering faster than the alien doctors had predicted. His Deathworld constitution was handling the injuries with remarkable efficiency. Kyle Harrison sat with his son every day, reading to him and playing quiet games to keep the boy's spirits up. When can I see the ships again? Dad, Brandon asked one afternoon. His chest still hurt, but the doctor said he could leave the hospital in a few days. Kyle smiled sadly. Soon, buddy, he promised, but maybe we'll watch from a different deck this time. The child nodded, then looked thoughtful. Is everyone mad at that alien who hit me? He asked. His father chose his words carefully. A lot of people are upset about what happened, he said. Not just humans, other species too, because what he did was wrong, and they want to make sure it never happens again. Brandon was quiet for a moment. I don't want people to fight because of me, he said softly. Kyle pulled his son into a gentle hug. This isn't about you, Brandon. This is about doing what's right. That man hurt you badly, and he needs to answer for it. That's how justice works. On the 3rd day, after the ultimatum had been delivered, the Valorian Council Speaker, Elder Ventalis, received an unexpected delegation, representatives from over 40 minor species. Those with small populations and little military power requested an emergency audience. Their spokesperson was a Felian trader named Corval, whose species numbered only a few million across 2 colony worlds. Elder Ventalis, he began respectfully, we bring a petition signed by our governments. He presented the document, which outlined a simple position. If the council allowed the Krathik position to stand, That powerful species could harm the children of weaker races without consequence. Then council law meant nothing. We demand that justice be enforced. Koval stated, if Ziegler is not tried for his crime, our species will withdraw from council protection and seek bilateral agreements with humanity instead. Ventalis felt a chill run through him. This was a crisis that threatened the entire structure of galactic civilization. The council's power came from the unity of hundreds of species. If the minor members left, the whole system would collapse. More species added their voices over the next hours. The Centauri officially requested that their previous incidents with the Krathuk be reopened for investigation. 3 other species came forward with similar stories of Krathuk, violence against their young that had been quietly settled with payments. A pattern was emerging that disgusted the council leadership. The Krathuk had been systematically abusing weaker species for years, and everyone had looked the other way to maintain peace. Ambassador Barrett received the news with grim satisfaction. The truth always comes out eventually, she told Captain Mitchell. Now the council has to decide. Are they a body of justice or just a club for the powerful? With 24 hours remaining in the ultimatum, Admiral Crawford received new orders from Earth. The Secretary of Defense had authorized him to use any and all necessary measures to secure justice for Brandon Cooper. The Admiral called a meeting of his ship commanders. I want to be absolutely clear, he told them. We will not fire first, but if the Krathuk attack, our response will be overwhelming and decisive. We are here to protect human citizens and enforce justice. Is that understood? Every captain acknowledged the orders. On the Krathuk battlecruiser, Lord Krathux faced an impossible choice. His pride demanded that he refuse the human ultimatum. But the growing coalition against him made the political cost increasingly clear in his detention cell. Ziegler remained defiant. He had been visited by Krathuk legal counsel, who assured him that the Dominion would never surrender one of their citizens to alien justice. But in the station's observation deck, now repaired and cleaned of all evidence of violence, Velkin the Centauri stood at the window and wondered if the galaxy was about to change forever. The human child had survived, but would peace? The final 24 hours of the ultimatum passed with agonizing slowness. Every species in Council space watched Station Meridian, knowing that what happened there would define galactic civilization for generations to come. Elder Ventalis called an emergency session of the full council, bringing together representatives from every member species. The chamber was more crowded than it had been in decades, as delegates packed in to witness what many believed would be a historic moment. We face a crisis that threatens the foundation of our unity. Ventalis began, his ancient voice carrying the weight of his many years of service. The question before us is simple. Do we stand for justice, or do we allow might to make right? He gestured to the assembled delegates. 40 species have formally petitioned for enforcement of galactic law against Ziegler. The Centauri have revealed a pattern of Krathuk violence that we all ignored because it was easier than confrontation. And now humanity demands that we live up to our own stated principles. Lord Krathux rose to speak, but Ventalis held up a hand. You will have your turn, the elder said firmly. But first, I want everyone here to watch something. The chamber's display is activated, showing the security footage of Ziegler attacking Brandon Cooper. Many delegates had seen it before, but watching it again, in the formal setting of the council chamber, made it even more disturbing. The image of the small human child flying through the air and crashing into the wall brought gasps from species who had children of their own. Seeing the boys broken body lying motionless on the floor affected even the most hardened military officers in attendance. This is what we are discussing, Ventalis said quietly. Not politics, not trade agreements, not diplomatic maneuvering. We are discussing whether it is acceptable to brutally attack an 8-year-old child and call it discipline. The elder turned to face Lord Krathux. Directly, the Council presents the Krathic Dominion with a choice. He announced, submit Ziegler for trial under galactic law and accept that harming children is a crime regardless of species, or face expulsion from the Council and economic sanctions from every member world. Krathik's face twisted with rage. You would destroy centuries of cooperation over one insignificant juvenile. He shouted, the Dominion will not be bullied by threats. Then the Dominion will stand alone. Came a new voice. The Centauri ambassador, Liara, stood with her delegation. We withdraw our support for Krathic immunity, she declared. Too long we have accepted payments for harm done to our children. No more. One by one. Other species rose to echo her words. The minor powers who had petitioned earlier, then some of the mid-tier civilizations, and finally, even the Valorian military representative, Lord Krathix, looked around the chamber with growing horror. He had expected support from traditional allies, but found himself isolated. The Dominion's position had collapsed in a matter of minutes in a desperate attempt to regain control. Krathix activated his communicator and gave an order that would seal his species' fate. All Krathic vessels, power weapons, he commanded. Prepare to fire on the human flagship. On the bridge of the USS Defiant, alarms blared as sensors detected the Krathic battlecruisers charging their weapon systems. Admiral Crawford's crew moved with practiced efficiency, bringing their own defenses online. But the Admiral did not order weapons armed. Instead, he opened the channel on all frequencies so that every ship at the station could hear him. We're within the channel on all frequencies so that every ship at the station could hear him. This is Admiral Daniel Crawford of the United Earth Space Force. He broadcast, I want to speak directly to every being listening to this transmission. His voice was calm but filled with authority. 20 years ago, humanity came to the stars with hope, he continued. We had dreamed for generations of meeting other intelligent life, of learning from you, of building a better future together. And for 20 years, we have worked to make those dreams real. Crawford paused, letting his words sink in. We have shared our technology, our art, our culture. We have traded fairly and negotiated honestly. We have respected your laws and honored your customs. We did this because we believed in the possibility of peace. The Krathic weapons were nearly fully charged. Admiral Crawford's tactical officer looked at him questioningly, but he shook his head. Not yet, but there is one thing humans will never compromise on. Crawford said, his voice growing harder. The safety of children is sacred to us, not just human children, but all children. It is written into our deepest instincts, our most fundamental values. We protect the young because without them, there is no future. He pulled up an image of Brandon Cooper, smiling in a photo taken before the attack. This is Brandon. He is 8 years old. He likes ships and stars and making friends with aliens. 3 days ago, he was brutally attacked for the crime of being clumsy. He nearly died, and the creature who hurt him showed no remorse. Crawford's voice took on an edge that made several alien commanders feel fear for the first time in their lives. We gave you time for justice, he said. We presented our case. We followed your procedures. We respected your laws. But Lord Krathix has chosen violence instead. So now, I will teach you something about Deathworld species. The Krathic battle cruisers opened fire. Brilliant beams of energy lanced across space toward the human flagship. What happened next became the stuff of legend in every military academy across Council space. The Defiant's defensive systems, designed to withstand atmospheric re-entry on worlds that would crush most ships, absorbed the Krathic assault without even flickering. The energy that should have crippled a capital ship simply dispersed across shields built to handle far worse. And then the humans struck back. The counterattack was surgical and devastating. Precision weapons fire, disabled the Krathic cruiser's weapon systems in seconds. Their engines went offline moments later. Their shields collapsed under-focused. Electromagnetic pulses, and through it all, not a single Krathic crew member was killed. The entire engagement lasted 90 seconds. 3 Krathic battle cruisers floated helpless in space, their crews shaken but alive. Admiral Crawford's voice came over the general frequency again. "We could have destroyed those ships," he said quietly. "We could have killed everyone aboard. Our weapons were more than capable, but we chose not to. That is the difference between humanity and those who believe might makes right." He transmitted a final message directly. "To Lord Krathic, you have one more chance to choose. Surrender Zekther for trial, or watch your species become pariahs in a galaxy that has seen your true nature." In the council chamber, Lord Krathic stood in shocked silence. His military had been defeated in less than 2 minutes, and he finally understood the terrible truth. Humanity had been holding back all along. They could have come to the council with threats and weapons, could have demanded whatever they wanted through force, but they had chosen diplomacy first. They had given every chance for peace. They had only shown their strength when left with no other option. The Krathic Lord's defiance crumbled. "The Dominion submits," he said, his voice barely audible. "Zekther will be remanded to council custody for trial." 3 months later, the trial concluded. Brandon Cooper, fully recovered and sitting beside his father, watched as Zekther was convicted of assault on a minor and sentenced to 15 years in custody. The first 5 years would be served in a human rehabilitation facility where he would learn about empathy, responsibility, and the value of all life. But the real change went deeper. The council passed new legislation known throughout the galaxy as Brandon's Law, establishing universal protections for juveniles of all species. The Krathic Dominion, humbled by their defeat and isolation, began reforming their laws about child welfare. Admiral Crawford was called before the council to explain his actions. He stood at the speaker's platform and delivered his final message to galactic civilization. "We didn't come to the stars to dominate or conquer," he said simply. "We came to build something better, something worthy of our children's future. But if you threaten our young, or any young, you will discover why Earth's harsh wilderness produced the deadliest predator in galactic history." He paused, looking around at the assembled delegates. "Not because we are the strongest or the fastest, not because we have the best weapons or the biggest ships, but because we are the ones who will never, ever stop protecting our children. That is our gift and our burden as Deathworld born." The speech ended with a reminder that resonated across council space. Humanity would forgive much, accept many differences, and work tirelessly for peace. But harm a child, any child, and you would face the full weight of Deathworld Retribution. As Brandon Cooper left the council chamber that day, holding his father's hand, he asked if they could stay on the station a little longer. He wanted to visit Vulcan's daughter, who was about his age, and maybe show her the observation deck, the same deck where he had been attacked. Kyle Harrison looked at his son, this brave child who still saw the galaxy as a place of wonder despite everything he had suffered, and understood that this was why humanity fought, not for revenge, not for power, but to ensure that children could grow up in a universe where kindness mattered more than strength. And throughout council space, other species learned the lesson that the Krathic had learned too late. Humans were patient, diplomatic, and eager for peace.